First, I'd like to book you in a small lounge in Vegas for the experience. Then the area talk shows, you know, Tom Snyder, Mike Douglas, all leading to Carson. Then if he asks you to come back, I think he will. That should do it. So, you keep Modem out there in line while I work on them true lists at the network. You're a good kid, Corky.
Hey, you know what I think?
Now, what do you think?
We're gonna be a star.
That's a creepy opening scene from Magic, a frightening thriller with Anthony Hopkins as a ventriloquist with a split personality. I think it's one of the best movies of the year. Magic is one of 5 new films we'll be reviewing on Sneak Previews, 2 film critics talking about and sometimes arguing about new movies in town. This is Roger Ebert, the Pulitzer Prize-winning film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And across the aisle from me is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune and CBS TV News in Chicago. And I might add, Gene, that you and I seem to be in total disagreement about most of the movies on tonight's show.
Doesn't bother me.
Okay. In addition to Magic, which I didn't like nearly as much as you did, we'll be looking at scenes from Midnight Express, the story of a young American's ordeal in a Turkish prison. Sylvester Stallone is a hustling slum kid in Paradise Alley. The new animated film about rabbits, Watership Down, and now Gene starts with Comes a Horseman.
Roger, there hasn't been a good classic Western movie in years until now, until Comes a Horseman, which is set in 1945 Montana cattle country. Jane Fonda plays a small-time rancher in real danger of getting overrun by her neighbor, cattle baron Jason Robards, who wants to own the whole valley for himself. Also in the valley, James Caan, who has an even smaller ranch than Fonda. She sold it to him. Caan is just back from World War II, and he and Fonda reluctantly realize they're going to have to help each other if they want to keep their land.
I meant what I said about taking you to town.
Thank you. I ain't going to town.
You ain't going back to that toilet you call a cabin, are you?
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me. It seemed to me a person in your situation might use an able-bodied man. Thank you.
I guess I could use a hired hand.
Sorry, I ain't no hired hand. I'll work with you, but I sure as hell can't work for you.
You do owe me. You owe me for the care and the time you spent at my place.
Excuse me?
I said you do owe me.
All right. I'll work for you, season. You pay me any way you can at the end. Except some of it's got to be in stock. Of course, any of mine we find, you help me trap 'em.
After they agree to work together, bad guy Jason Robards gets wind of it. He decides to show these 2 small-timers who's boss of the valley. Robards drives his cattle across James Caan's grazing land as the film's main battle begins to heat up.
I believe you're on my land.
Take them around the long way. We lose maybe 2 to 4 pounds apiece. This is the best way.
Don't mean a damn to me.
I'll pay passage fees.
Imagine you will.
You let him cross here, he's gonna walk all over you. This is a legal challenge. I know what I'm talking about. He tried to do this to my dad.
You let me tend to my business. How many head you bringing?
1,000.
Look like you're halfway through now.
Strong characters there, and what I like about Comes a Horseman is even though it's a classic David and Goliath story, little Fonda and Kahn against big Robards, there are plenty of smaller battles in the film as well. Fonda and Kahn have to learn to cooperate with each other, and Robards is fighting off an oil man who wants to drill in his land. But most important, Comes a Horseman is full of strong individuals, powerful people against a big western sky. Ultimately, that's what makes it a classic western and a good movie.
A good movie, yes, I'd agree with that, but not a movie I could recommend. And in a way, it really should be good because look who made it. Alan Pakula, the director, just made All the President's Men. Fonda gives a great performance. James Caan is better than he has been in a long time. The cinematography was by Gordon Willis, who did The Godfather.
Sounds like you liked a little bit of it.
I did like it a little bit. I'm not going to forget it right away. At the same time, though, they put all of this quality into it, but they forgot to put any life into it. It just kind of sits there. It's perfect in its own way, but it doesn't involve us. It doesn't have enough energy.
I got involved as soon as Robards came on the screen. We see him in that cattle drive sequence. He's menacing. This film, as you said, is shot by the same guy who did the Godfather pictures. I found that this Robards character was just as powerful, power-hungry, family power-hungry as Michael Corleone.
Well, but he really wasn't in the movie that much, Jason Robards wasn't. And for the rest of it, it seemed to me that things went along for an hour and 45 minutes with not very much really happening from moment to moment. Then we get this arbitrary melodramatic ending and the movie's over. It just didn't come together.
I agree with you. The ending is slapdash and insults, I think, some of the fine qualities of earlier in the picture.
Well, anyway, Midnight Express, which is our next film, is anything but slow-paced. It's the violent and terrifying story of a young American kid who tries to smuggle hashish out of Turkey and winds up with a life sentence. The movie is more or less based on the real-life story of Billy Hayes, who was arrested and jailed in Turkey in 1970 and escaped in 1975. Well, the 5 years in prison were sheer hell for Billy Hayes. He was beaten and brutalized, and the only thing that kept him going was the hope of a successful appeal or an escape. Now, in this scene, his girlfriend comes to visit him and to smuggle him some $100 bills.
Oh, my God. Oh, Billy. Billy, what have they done to you? Billy? Your father gave me this for you. There's pictures of your mom and dad, and Rob and Peg. And in the back, Billy, there's a picture of your old friend, Mr. Franklin. Remember him? From the bank. Billy, he's over in Greece now. He bought a ticket. I'll give it to them for you. Oh, Billy. Don't count on them. Don't you count on anyone but yourself, you hear?
He's here. No!
Billy, you're running out of time. If you stay here, you'll die. Christ, you've got to get yourself together. You've got to get out of here. Oh.
Well, right there is the turning point of the whole movie, because the money hidden in that book is Billy's first step on the road out of prison. And the escape in the film didn't happen that way in real life. In fact, Midnight Express doesn't totally follow the facts, and the movie is much too eager to make the Turks into totally sadistic neo-Nazi bad guys. But somehow those are criticisms you come up with afterwards. Watching Midnight Express is a totally involving process. We're terrified and repelled by the violence in that prison, and yet somehow at the same time the prison becomes a microcosm of the world outside. So a lot of questions can be raised about Midnight Express, but it is a well-made thriller, it's a violent shocker, and it's never boring.
Well, I did have a lot of questions raised by the film, and I thought it played kind of fast and loose with the facts. The only reason I bothered to check, right at the beginning of the picture, they have a card on the screen that says, based on a true story. At the end of the picture, a similar kind of thing. If they're going to claim to be truthful and try to impress me, I'm going to challenge them on being truthful.
Well, you're right. If they are being dishonest, if they want people to accept the picture as a documentary of what happened to Billy Hayes. But I think most of the people going to see this picture don't even care if there really is a Billy Hayes or not. They're involved in the story of this young American kid. They get wrapped up in it. It works. It's a success.
See, I think by overloading it, by making it so horrible in the prison, like you said, that they changed this kid into a hero. I don't think he was a hero. All I think he was a survivor.
He was a survivor, and he was a drug smuggler, but it's kind of like the bad guys in a Hitchcock film. Because the camera follows them and their story, you identify with him. So he was a smuggler. At the same time, you want him to get out of prison.
Okay, it thrilled you, didn't thrill me. The last picture that really scared me was The Exorcist. Before that, Rosemary's Baby. Well, there's a new movie named Magic, just as good as those two thrillers. It's the exciting story of a schizophrenic magician who uses ventriloquism in his act, and his dummy is the stronger part of his split personality. Anthony Hopkins plays the ventriloquist magician. After he hits it big in New York City, he becomes frightened by his success. He runs away to a resort in the woods owned by a woman he had a crush on in high school. Anne Margaret plays that woman. She's unhappily married now, and she's excited to see Hopkins and his wise guy dummy.
Oh, my God, he bought that.
You thought Peg didn't remember. Ah.
You knew who I was, too?
Yeah. Well, why didn't you two at least grunt at each other?
He's just as cute as he is on the tube.
Cute? Virile, yes. Sexy, yes. Ronald Reagan is cute.
Oh, please, could I hold him just so I'll be careful? Oh, he's heavy.
Husky, a bimbo.
His lips didn't move.
That's because you're not stroking my levers, sweetheart.
Oh.
Right in there.
Ooh, she ghosted me.
Ignore him. Go right ahead. Okay. There.
Oh.
And there.
See.
All seems very happy there, except that Corky, Anthony Hopkins, has run away from New York to see Anne Margaret without telling his agent, Burgess Meredith. Meredith eventually tracks Corky down. He realizes his client is a very sick man, afraid of success, and totally dependent on his dummy for strength.
Nothing's funny. Not anymore.
What are you going to do?
Gonna make a few phone calls.
Tell people you mean?
Corky, you ain't in control.
You owe me a listen, don't you think? Yeah, I was kind of out of control back in the city. I could feel myself starting to slip down the iceberg.
So you took off? And now you're fine?
Sure, on account of Peg. The local town pump, terrific knockers. Look, Fats, please. Come on, will you? Sorry. I've known her ever since high school. I never figured I'd have a chance with her, but now everything's changed. She believes in me.
Listen, girls are for down the line, kid. Right now, you gotta let me help you. I know a lot of people. Beautiful doctors.
He means head shrinkers. He just thinks you're a fruitcake.
He doesn't. He never said that. He's on our side.
He's the film. Don't forget that. Never forget that.
Hey, kid. I'm gonna ask you to do something. It's a little something anybody ought to be able to do. Now, if you can do it, fine. We'll forget this whole thing. But if you can't, we'll think about getting you to see somebody fast. Is it a deal?
Name it.
Make Fat shut up for 5 minutes.
$5 minutes? I can make him shut up for 5 years.
Just great. That 5-minute test turns out to be the longest 5 minutes in this guy's life as the film really moves into high gear. Obviously, Corky and Fats can't let the word get out that Corky's a nutcase, so Magic becomes a murderous, R-rated thriller as Corky tries to save himself, even half of himself. Anthony Hopkins is brilliant in his role of Corky. How tough it must have been to act with a 16-pound dummy on his arm. So, good thrills, the rough world of show business, a touching love story. That's all in Magic. For my money, one of the year's best movies.
Well, not for my money, Gene. I kind of like the premise during the first hour as they set it up. This guy is schizophrenic, his dummy is the other half of his personality. But then the second hour just works that out. There aren't any surprises. I think there should have been some kind of a twist, maybe something supernatural.
Roger, as long as the two of them are on camera, and I can see that, I can almost feel like the blood flowing between this guy and his dummy and his arm. If this guy can make a piece of wood come alive, I can't help but watch the picture.
I have to agree with you, but that, I think the credit there goes to Anthony Hopkins. It's a great performance. Richard Attenborough does a good job of directing the picture. I like Burgess Meredith. I thought the general level of the picture was so high that the last half hour just let me down. I wanted something more to happen. I don't think the screenplay does justice to the talent of the people who made the movie.
We're getting pictures that we like, but then they dribble off at the end.
Well, that's an example with the next picture, I think, which is good until the end. Sylvester Stallone will be remembered for the rest of his days as Rocky. Has a new movie out called Paradise Alley. It's the story of 3 Italian-American brothers growing up in the Hell's Kitchen area of New York 30 years ago, trying to make it any way they can. Well, Stallone is only a street hustler, but just like Rocky, he knows he's going to be somebody someday. And here he tries out his line on a girl he wants to impress while he's walking her home at night.
Listen, we get a 20-piece band, and I set you up in the best clubs in Manhattan or Brooklyn if you want. Huh? Forget Brooklyn.
That's Ann Archer. She's really great. Stallone keeps trying to play all the angles, trying to make some money. Now, here's a scene where he bets $100 on an arm wrestling contest between his kid brother and a tough neighborhood hoodlum.
Guess what? Frankie here wants to have a friendly arm wrestling match.
Nonsense. You can still back out.
Who rattled your cage?
I'm looking out for Victor.
Come on, let's go.
We're getting there, Stitch. Listen, I just bet $100 against that monkey. I ain't got a dime. Now, if you don't win, these creeps are gonna try to drag me in the alley and tie knots in my spine. Not that I can't handle it. But who needs the midnight exercise?
Let's go.
We're getting there.
You got the arm, that's muscle. Come on now, that's a tough guy. Come on, you got it, That's it.
Come on, Vic.
That's a great scene. It grows and grows, it builds and builds. It's just got great tension there. Anyway, the kid turns out to be the meal ticket for Stallone and his older brother, who talk him into becoming a professional wrestler. And Paradise Alley is Sylvester Stallone's movie all the way. He wrote it, he directed it, and he stars in it, and it's got a really original feeling to it. It's funny and outrageous, and Stallone isn't afraid to go to stylistic extremes. He uses corniness, broad comedy, wild exaggerations, whatever he needs to get his points across, like that guy tearing his shirt off.
Right.
Paradise Alley is never realistic. I don't think characters like this ever existed in Hell's Kitchen or anywhere else. But the movie exaggerates so well. It's so filled with life and energy and high spirits, carries us right along.
Right along again until that ending.
Until the end.
You know, this picture, he creates such a weird world, as you said. This Paradise Alley is a gambling den and a wrestling parlor underneath some building. Really exciting. We expect some weird kind of finish to the picture. No, cornball happy ending.
Right out of Rocky. Rocky ended with a big fist fight. This ends with a big wrestling match. Worked in Rocky. It doesn't work this time.
I think maybe Stallone has this idea that if you just give people a happy, big, exciting physical ending, that it's going to work all the time.
Well, the formula didn't work this time. It was a letdown. We cared about these characters. We wanted to see what happened to them.
Yeah. Well, animated movies now are trying to make a comeback of a kind. This year, I think one of the better efforts is certain to be Watership Down, which takes us into the world of rabbits. But it's no cuddly bunny story. It's an adventure film filled with good and bad rabbits, and of course, that constant threat to animals in animated pictures, mankind. Vicious mankind that wants to destroy the countryside to put up a housing development. In this scene, a wounded rabbit stumbles into a band of his fellow cottontails and tells them the story of how their homes, Their rabbit warrens have been destroyed.
Who's there?
All dead. Oh, Dawn.
It's Captain Holly. Holly, it's me, Bigwig.
I found you. I found you.
He's been hurt. Look at that wound on his shoulder.
I remember you. You're the one that saw it coming.
But what happened?
Our warren. Destroyed.
Destroyed? How?
Men came, filled in the burrows. Couldn't get out. There was a strange sound. You see, the air turned bad. Runs blocked with dead bodies. We couldn't get out. Everything turned mad. Water, earth, roots, grass, all pushed into the air.
Men have always hated us.
No. They just destroyed the warren because we were in their way.
They'll never rest until they've spoiled the earth.
Fairly emotional scene there. Watership Down ran on a little bit too long for my taste, but I found most of it very effective. I began seeing the world from the rabbit height of about 6 or 7 inches off the ground and below ground. I was put in touch with the delicate and brutal balance of nature. And I know the next time I see a rabbit running alongside a road, I'm going to wonder what bulldozer he's running away from. Watership Down is a good story, more mature than what we usually expect or get from an animated feature film.
Well, that's what I had the problem with. I liked the story. I didn't like the animation. I don't think they match. The story, as you pointed out, is about real rabbits. You know, they're not Bugs Bunny. They've got sinew and flesh and blood and muscle, and they're out there in the real world. And then the animation was all kind of soft-edged and cuddly and like a cartoon. I don't think it fit together.
Well, all I can tell you is that just in that scene we saw there, that rabbit comes in, he's wounded, and he tells this sad story about the destruction, and I really bought it.
Did you shed a tear, Gene?
Came close.
Okay.
Well, look at those ears. I bet he liked Watership Down. At any rate, this mongrel on the mezzanine means it's time for Dog of the Week, our regular feature where each of us picks the week's worst movies.
Okay, Gene, my dog this week is a wet blanket named Slithus. Got that great title, Slithus. You don't know if you're saying it or swallowing it. It's about this strange creature that grows up in the water near a nuclear waste dump, and then it crawls up onto the land to devour its innocent victims. You'd think they'd see it coming. It looks like Bigfoot, and it's wearing the cruddiest costume of the year, a slimy shag rug with seaweed and oatmeal stuck all over it. Send this monster to the cleaners. All during this movie, people are going, no, stop, anything but that. The only problem is the people aren't in the movie, they're in the audience.
Well, Roger, my dog this week is a 4-year-old film named The Devil's Reign that's suddenly come back to a lot of theaters advertised as starring John Travolta. That's a complete lie. The Devil's Reign stars Ernest Borgnine as a devil's helper trying to hang on to some lost souls. Travolta is on screen for less than a minute. This was his first film. He had only one line of dialogue in it. Most of the time, he has red and green wax melting all over his face. It looks like he fell asleep on a pizza. There he is right at the end. Now, of course, the reason why Travolta is being advertised as starring in this ridiculous drivel is that right now he's the hottest actor in Hollywood. So beware of films you've never heard of promising big stars. One reason you never heard of them? They're lousy.
Okay, Gene, and now for another look at the major movies on this show. Gene and I disagreed about Comes a Horseman, the new Western with Jane Fonda and James Caan. We both thought it was an intelligent, sensitive attempt at a modern Western, but Gene thought it worked and I didn't. So Gene gives it a yes and I give it a no. Gene recommends you see it, I don't. Midnight Express was a thriller about a young American in a Turkish prison. I liked it. I thought it was effective in its violent brutality, but Gene thought it played too loose with the facts, and so he gives it a no. We also split on Magic, the thriller starring Anthony Hopkins as a psychotic magician. Gene thought it was one of the best thrillers of recent years and gives it a yes. I thought it was all too predictable. Paradise Alley gets a yes from both of us. We thought the ending was weak, but we liked Sylvester Stallone's juicy portrait of a young man growing up in Hell's Kitchen. We disagreed again on Watership Down. Gene liked the animated film about some very human rabbits. I like the rabbits, but not the animation.
Now, next on Sneak Previews, we'll show you scenes from 5 more new movies, including Slow Dancing in the Big City, an unusual love story about a newspaper man and a ballet dancer, Going Coconuts with Donnie and Marie Osmond, and A Dream of Passion, starring Melina Mercouri as a veteran actress who finds fact stranger than fiction. Until then, see you at the movies.
Funding for this program is provided by this station and by other public television stations.